Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to your exclusive preview of the October release, the upcoming October release of Dynamics 365 Business Central. My name's Michael. I'm from Professional Advantage and I'm your host today, but I'm joined by Tim Shaw from Microsoft, who will be taking us through the content of this upcoming October release. So whether you're an existing Dynamics 365 Business Central customer, whether you're using the solution now and looking forward to seeing what's coming in the October release, or whether you're considering moving to the Business Central solution, Tim's going to take you through some of the things that are coming up in that October release and also touch on some of the concepts around cloud deployment and cloud enablement from a Microsoft perspective. As I mentioned, my name's Michael. I'm from Professional Advantage. I look after our client business within PA, so I'm certainly keenly interested in the information around the upcoming release for our Business Central clients. But our presenter today, as I mentioned, is Tim Shaw. We're really excited to have Tim with us today and presenting the content from a Microsoft perspective. So Tim is partner technical architect at Microsoft, has been working for many years within the ERP space within Microsoft, certainly a passionate advocate for cloud deployment and really supports the Business Central community and supports partners, particularly Professional Advantage. So we're really excited to be working with Tim and to be able to bring this content to you as presented by Tim today. So on that note, I'll hand over to Tim to take us through the presentation. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you to everybody for attending today to listen to me talk about the Road to the Cloud, Business Central, and the October 2020 release. I sincerely hope that you are all doing okay in these times, precedented times, and I hope this webinar delivers you some information on Business Central forward. So today I'm going to talk a few things. So I'm going to talk about the release themes. So what are we releasing in October and what are the themes around this release? So this will be a high level discussion on that. Then I'm going to do some demos, which are more screenshots of certain components that are coming up in October. I'm going to talk about how you update your system, or if you're currently on Business Central, what the updating process is. And then we'll finish with the benefits and tools of the cloud systems. So let's get straight into the themes. The way we work is we plan a high level concept of different categories of work that we're going to do. And then underneath that, we have details. The first key theme is a seamless service. So when you're running a global software as a service platform like we are, it is about seamless service. And what I mean by seamless service is, as a customer, you really don't know anything other than your experiences that you can use the platform and the platform performs. And when we talk about performance, we talk about a consistent experience when interacting with the actual platform. So unlike things like when when a lot of people started working from home, you may have noticed that during the day you get great internet connection at around about 3 o'clock, when a lot of the kids were showing back up from school and starting to play things like Fortnite or whatever they're playing online, that all of a sudden the internet connection performance would actually degrade. So what we're talking about is a continuous experience, continuous speed, not highs and lows, just a continuous performance that meets expectation. Then we talk about productivity, and productivity comes in a number of ways. It is about the seamless service. So how quickly does a page open? How quickly can you move from one field to another? How many buttons do you need to push to actually do a process? So we continue looking at that and improving the system around that productivity part. And that's why we introduced functionality like the ability to personalize, the ability to determine which field the cursor moves to after one field, and the ability to hide things from the screen so that when your workers are working, they're not worried about information on the screen that's not relevant. And when you're training a new person, they're not being distracted and asking about this field here and that field there when they don't actually need to use it. Then we moved to Power Platform integration. So in April, we released what we call our common data service space integration. And we continue to work on that and tweak that and make that experience. What Power Platform integration does for you is it enables you to do dashboards in Power BI. It enables you to use Power Automate to automate processes. So for example, if I enter something in Business Central, I can update another system, or if I update something in something like Office Planner, I can actually go and update something in Business Central. And then on top of that, you would have hopefully heard, or if you haven't heard of, we have our apps. So our Power Apps platform, whether they're Canvas or Model. And the concept of that, if I look at the Canvas models, is a low code, zero code sort of environment where people can do things quickly without the overall encumbrance of technical coding that can be introduced by doing that level. An example of this is we have a customer that is using the platform to enable an app that allows their people in their organization, whether they're members of Business Central or whether they're actually outside of Business Central, to actually raise a customer request to change an order or change an invoice. Now they're talking about high value items, so it's high value, low volume. So any change to an order is needed to be reviewed. And then we are also talking about a style platform. So anyway, so that we built the Power App, and what it's doing is when you enter this change, it's bringing data out of Business Central and automatically entering a lot of fields for them. So it saves time and also takes away issues from people typing things incorrectly. So that's kind of where the Power App comes. So there's many examples of Power Apps doing return to work and doing COVID response, but also using Business Central to actually get as a data source for that Power Platform, and even in some cases going and updating Power Business Central at the end of the actual process. Development tools. It is important that we build a reliable, seamless service and a reliable platform that enables our partners to extend the solution to customers' needs. And that's one of the primary things about Business Central, apart from being a rich, deep functional product. We do have the ability to develop and extend the solution so that you can build process into the system that may provide you back some value. So to give you an example of that's what I'm talking about there is I had a customer in Brisbane who went and extended our job tasks area of the system to cater for how his business works. And he still today has 3 people working in that department. Whereas if he hadn't have extended, he would have potentially had to use outside tools and potentially added more staff to do those processes. So he used the platform, extended the platform to his needs to make sure his operations was optimized and efficient and kept at a low level of cost. Then we talk about better with Office 365, and I'll show you some slides here, which Michael referred to as confidential shortly, but better with Office 365. So already when you're entering email, so you've got an email, you've already got the ability to go out to Business Central, create a quote from an email that comes in, create a purchase order from an email that comes in from a customer, look up a document directly from the actual Outlook client without leaving Office 365. And when we talk about Teams, obviously there's a great, if you're using Teams today, I mean at Microsoft we use it and I spend a lot of time in it, and the more I can do in Teams without leaving Team is more efficient for me. Then geographic expansion. So as we go around the world, you'll find Business Central in the US, in UK, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, etc. And we're going to increase areas that we cover, including areas like India. And then finally, customer migration tools. So for us, enabling customers that are currently using products like Dynamics NAV or Dynamics GP or Dynamics AX to migrate to the cloud and take some of the overhead of that has always been a priority for us. And we're updating those tools to enable transformation to be a little bit easier than what it has in the past. The details of these themes and drilling down on what each one of them means can be located at the link down the bottom of the slide. So feel free to click that and go and have a look and see what's coming. So the first thing that's coming is Smart Lists. So some of our customers in another product would know what a Smart List is. This is targeting October. So the reason we call this a preview is because we have a list of things that we want to release by a certain time. So we do release major releases in April and October each year. And we do minor releases each month when required to fix any challenges, and sometimes to release new functionality that doesn't break anything in the system. But the major releases that are targeted are October, and those releases will be deployed from October till April. So sometimes a lot of them come out in October. In fact, that's our target. And then sometimes some are delayed a little bit further in what we call a wave. So SmartList, we are targeting October. As we go in the preview and we're testing things further, if something comes up that causes issues, then we will push that back. But at this stage, everything looks good for SmartList. And so the question is, what is a SmartList? So when you look at it, what we want to do is be able to build data queries in the cloud with zero code. What that means is we want to make it possible for you to go and say, I want to go and join this table to that table to this table, and then have that as a list on my system, and then also potentially be able to access that by a web service. So what we've developed is a query designer application for the cloud. We've enabled you to define, save, and edit the queries, and then we enable you to view the query results from the list pages. So to give you an example of what I would see useful in this area myself, imagine if you wanted to know what your incumbents was on a general ledger account. So in Business Central, I have my GL accounts. In my purchasing area, I have my purchase order lines. So what I would be doing is I'd be creating a list that shows me my chart of accounts, shows me my accounts, shows the actuals, and shows the budget. And then I'd be adding the purchase order lines by those accounts into that list. So I could see not only what my actuals are, I could see what my budget is, but I could also see what I've already committed to spend. And that's kind of where SmartList comes in play. So we have a designer set up. This is not available at the moment. This is not in preview, but will be lighted up in October for you to get access to it. What it allows you to do is to go and configure the app and install the app in Business Central. Once the app is installed, you'll be able to create and edit a query, and you'll be able to navigate to the SmartList designer from 21 list pages. That's very specific. So I would have said 21 plus, but 21 lists, they must have counted them. And you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, which you'll see the screen a little bit, is I've got my customers, I've got my salesperson purchase data, and I've got my country region. And what I'm able to do when I look at that, I can select my data sources. So you can choose up to 1 to 4 tables for your query. The table relationships of those tables will be automatically defined, but you can change that and have user defined. So if there's no standard relationship between the tables, and you know that, for instance, the name is meant to be equal to the name, then you could link those if you wanted to. Then you can manage the fields that you want to display. So what do you actually want to show in the list? And then you can apply filters. Once you've done that, and the screen on the right-hand side is not changing, just in case you're concerned about that, it's the same screen. Creating, editing a query, you can preview the results. You can save the query, provide a name, and assign the query to a list page. So maybe I want that showing up my GL accounts. Maybe I want to show up my customer list. Maybe I want to show it up in the vendor list. Depends on where you want it to show it. So you can just determine where you want that. And then from a management side, so what you're seeing now on the right-hand side is it actually has created queries in the system. So it's not just some sort of virtual thing. It's actually created objects and extended the solution to add these queries that you've created. And at this stage, you can create, edit, or delete existing queries. You can export, import them. You can assign permissions to them, so who's allowed to use the query. And then you can also add custom navigation on them, so how they navigate around the system when you're drilling down. And that's SmartList. So as we go forward and we get into October, be prepared to see and hear more about that, because it is a pretty exciting new feature. Then the next one is Company Hub. So that's now in preview, and I will talk at the end of the presentation about how you get access to the preview. That's currently in preview. Basically what it is, it's our first run, and it's replacing some functionality that we had in US, Canada, and UK within the system. And the functionality is about being able to see the cash accounts balances, overdue purchase invoice amounts, and sales invoice amounts for all companies in one location, whether they're part of the current tenant, which is, so if I'm in Australia, that's called a tenant, or if they're on another tenant. So if I had multiple production tenants, multiple maybe in Australia, or maybe one in Australia, one in New Zealand, maybe one in the US, then I can actually link all those tenants and all the legal entities that are being housed in that particular tenant into this one view. So not only can I do that, I get a link to open the company. So I can click on any of those and it'll open a tab for that company directly from here. I can see the balances, but I can also see my tasks that I'm meant to do in each company and my overdue tasks. So I get that single view of multiple companies. If this is of interest to you and you're kind of saying, well, if it would be better if I had this functionality, then we will send out a link to aka.ms/BC Ideas, and we're looking for feedback on this to improve this and to make it more of what customers want to use. So that'd be very much appreciated. To set it up, you basically will go into the system, you'll put in a name. So I chose a very not exciting name called V17 All. I chose V17 Companies because I'm using a demo system. I include demo company. You can also include companies that are privacy blocked. So part of Business Central for Europe in particular, and can be used anywhere, is privacy around global data protection regulation. So you can actually choose to include those companies or not. And the environment link is just taken from the top of the actual line. And you can put address details in if you want and test it. And it's that easy, and then it will load the data in. Let's talk about updating Business Central. We have this concept of a software as a service. So software as a service means that the software is provided and updated as a service. So we're getting to the point with Business Central, and I've seen this last release in April, where the amount of user acceptance testing that people need to do to accept a new version is much less, and the amount of work that they need to do is also much less. Sometimes it's nothing, sometimes it's a little bit, sometimes it's more. It depends on the size of the organization and the amount of extending you've done to the solution. So what we do is, and this is from April, but this will be updated in October, but basically what we do is we will notify you by the notification window, which I'll show shortly, that an update is available. If you don't go and do anything, then the update will roll out the date that we've set. If you want to, you can go in and change the update date to be another date. The upgrade window, you need to log a support request and ask for your upgrade to be postponed for whatever the business reason is. So that's how it works. We are already testing systems around the world to see if there are any issues with our upgrade. So the way the upgrade works is the system will go to update it. If there's issues with extensions that are on the system, then it will fail. So it won't leave your system half working and half not working. It will either achieve 100% upgrade or it won't. But we will be testing now to make sure that any per tenant extensions, so they're the extensions you've done for your system itself, or any apps that are deployed are going to upgrade. And if they can't, we will be notifying you if it's a per tenant extension, and we'll also be notifying you if there's a problem with your apps, and that gives you time to resolve any of that. Now, in most cases, there shouldn't be any issue there, but we do have a announcement 12 months in advance of any technical development areas that we're changing or we're taking out of the system, or replacing with something, and we notify developers 12 months in advance before we do that. So last time we announced things was October last year, so it could be that this October there are some things that clash, or there might not. The reality is we are working towards a reliable system where the cost of doing an upgrade and staying current is minimal, and the ability to do it is fairly easy. So the reality is anybody that brought Business Central in April to 2.5 years ago when it was released worldwide, or in July to over 2 years ago in Australia, will be on the current release and will be updated in the October frameline with some exceptions in that area, but that's pretty well what happens around the world. So there are documents that talk about that, and there are documents that talk about how to schedule an update with the links on the bottom here. Okay, so accessing the preview. So, okay, now I've got a preview. Why do I want to access it, and what am I going to do with it? So for starters, your admin person in your organization can go to the admin center, the Business Central Admin Center. It's available from the actual Business Central interface, or by putting admin/admin on the end of the tenant name. That brings you to here. What this does is shows you all your environments. So in my case, you can see I've got 2 production environments, 2 sandboxes, because I don't put a lot of thought into it because these are not real. I tend to give them any sort of name I want. And you can actually see all of my sandboxes and all my production units are all Australian. All of them are the same version except for 17.0.16297. So that's the preview. Okay. So the idea of doing a preview, it allows you to look and play, and it also allows you to deploy your per tenant extensions and play with those and do some smoke test or UAT, whatever level you need to do on those. And around testing, the best probably other than your own team to look and see what level of testing you need to do, the best people to advise on that would be probably your partner, Professional Advantage. So when I look at this here, I've got all these production environments. So what you need to do is you go in here and you click on new, you give the environment a name that makes sense to you, you give it a type of whatever you want, sandbox or production. You can only do the preview on sandbox, and a sandbox needs to be treated like it's called. It's a sandbox, it's a throwaway system. You choose your country. So when you look at the country, you'll see all these countries. So could you deploy US in this system? Yes, you can. If you deploy US, you'll get a US tenant that you can go into, and that US tenant that will have all the localizations for the US in and the US demo data. That data is actually housed in the US region. So if you deploy US, it's in the US. If you deploy AU, it's in Australia. And then the redundancy of the system is actually in the same region. We don't take it outside of the region. So we're not hosting your data, Australian data in the US. It's being hosted here. And if you need more information on that, there's a document. So once I've done that and I create it, I will get an environment like I do have at the background. And at that stage, you can load up your per tenant extensions or get Professional Advantage to do that for you. And then that means you've got a system where you can play with some of the new features that are there, and also make sure that your extension still works in that. Okay, it's very important that you have a notification recipient set up in this particular area here. If you don't have anything set up in here, then you're not going to get notified of any changes we've done or any issues that we found. This is the communication channel for Business Central from a Microsoft perspective. So you need to make sure you're there and that your partner is there, and then you'll be kept informed. You can also see some other things we've added, like telemetry and even reported outages. So telemetry allows you to, when somebody says I did this and they can't remember exactly what they did, telemetry allows you to see that sort of detail. Reported outages, actually, in the event that something does go wrong and you do have an outage, that allows you to allows your partner to report that outage. And what's different to that to normal support is that will actually wake up people in other countries to see what if there's a challenge. So we have a SLA of 99.994, I think it is, or we have a very high SLA. And as a result, we want to make sure if there is any issues that are bound to happen at some stage, knock on wood, that we have the right processes in place to make sure we address those straight away. So that's what that's about. So why would I move to the cloud? So for me, there's actually historically there's reasons why I would do it. The first one, stay current on the latest technology. So I was speaking to a customer the other day. They were on a version of software that was released in 2010. They've been in that software since that. They're now going to upgrade to the latest version. Once they get to the latest version, or actually to Business Central, once they get there, then historically the total cost of ownership is going to change, and the ability to stay on the latest version is going to change. So that's the way the software as a service system is developed. So the idea there is that if you look at a normal total cost of ownership, TCO, you might do that at 3 years or 5 years. When you're doing a system that is what we call evergreen, so it's meant to stay current, then the reality is after 5 years, you're going to be on the latest version with all the latest functionality, with all the latest innovation that is coming from not only from Microsoft, but is also coming from our customers. So that aka.ms/BC ideas, we use that to decide what features are next in the solution. So we listen to our customers. So that's number one. Second is reduce costs and free up resources. So all this issue with, I've got a performance issue, something's going slow, or I need to do a backup, or I need to check my backup, or I need to have a team watching the computers in another room, and security and all this just disappears. So you reduce those costs in regards to the infrastructure and platform, and that's frees up resources inside your business. And the last one, which is very important to me, I had a customer in a country close to us that for 2.5 years, even though they had an IT team of over 20 people, somebody had hacked into their system, gone through a back door, and had full access to full administration access to their system of servers that were being stored on the premises for over 2 years. They don't announce themselves because they actually want the data, so they don't necessarily want you to know that they're there, and they sit there. And when you look at Microsoft Azure, which Business Central is on top of, the amount of effort that Microsoft goes to ensure security, ensure privacy, ensure reliability is paramount to anybody could do around the world. And we have a trust center that explains all that down to the level. So keeping your security. I even remember when I was younger, one time I had a customer that was on an old Unix system, so that shows a bit of age. But they basically, the hard drive went down, so basically started smoking and never worked again. They had a backup tape, so we grabbed the backup tape and tried to restore, and the backup tape was empty. And that was because the person had been taking the tape home every night, hadn't been testing it at all at any stage, and had been putting on top of a speaker. And basically, it's a magnetic tape, so magnetism actually erases it. So that's where they're the sort of things that disappear when you start working with cloud services. So when you're looking at Dynamics 365 Business Central, so everything from financial management, sales and service management, project management, supply chain management, operations management, manufacturing, reporting analytics is within the one system. Additionally, we connect to Dynamics 365 Sales, customer service, and we can connect to the Power Platform to extend the application, or you can actually extend the actual application itself. There are a couple of customer stories here. We also have some customer stories in Australia on this, but when you look at this particular customer, Farnham Street, you can see that their future innovations, once they're on a platform like this, they can start thinking about future innovations. So they're not thinking about do I need to upgrade to the latest version. They're on the latest version. So now they look at Power BI, what they're going to do around that, and full adoption of the Dynamics 365 Sales. And then you can see other things that have been there from this particular customer. And this one here, I mean, the one that strikes me the most out of this particular one is ability for employees to work remote. So when these things happened back in February, March time for us, anybody that was on Business Central already had the ability to access Business Central remotely, depending on security. So it wasn't anything that needed to be done other than they needed to ensure that their staff could log in remotely, and that was it. Okay, licensing and resources for existing customers. So let's just finish this off with this. First of all, Business Central is more than an application. Yes, you have, as I said before, the components of financial management, sales and service, project management, operations management, reporting analytics, and supply chain. You still, also in the right-hand side on the screen where you see the graphs, what you see underneath that is us using Azure services to do a cash flow forecast. So looking at historical and coming up with, based off historical, what the trend is. And what that does is you would have already set up the manual configuration, pointed it to sales, brought all those values in for it to work that out, and done your manual expenses and any manual revenues you needed to add. But what it does is, okay, well, Cortana says this, I say that. It actually invokes the thought process. So which one is right, or what is the actual truth? So even if the data in the system is not complete to the stage where Cortana can get it 100%, it gives you a second pair of eyes. If I look on the left-hand side of that same screen where you can see the sales pipeline there, little funnel, so that's actually coming from Dynamics 365 Sales. In the right-hand corner, we've got a forecast coming from machine learning. And at the top, we've got the ability to bring in pictures and take that picture out to Azure Cognitive Services and analyze the characteristics of it. So it's a table, it's got 4 legs, it's brown, and bring those tags back to you to just decide which ones you want to actually include on the product. So you've got the Business Central application. If you purchase Business Central, then the users that have licenses have access to the Power Platform. That changes whether they're a team user or whether they're a full user, but you can see the licensing guide for that. But that actually gives them access to the Power Platform. And then on top of that, if you want to use data, you can add capacity for common data service. And then Azure services are being used. So everything we do around Azure SQL, from performance, from security, from reliability, from making sure there's backups being redundant, taken every millisecond, is all lighted up in the Business Central service. There's a lot of resources here. I'll leave this here, but some of them you'll be able to access, some you won't. But have a look at this. This will give you more details. And if you need any more than this, you can obviously talk to the people at Professional Advantage.
Tim, just a couple of really nice things there. I particularly like in the upcoming release. That's that smart list, bringing that smart list functionality through into Business Central. I think that's really, really neat. But certainly the Teams integration. I think that's, being able to collaborate there within Teams. Yeah, we're certainly seeing from a PA perspective, the adoption of Teams is increasing rapidly. So being able to surface that information, Business Central within Teams, I think that's a really good move for us there, and I think that's a really positive thing for our Business Central users. So really looking forward to that one. In terms of what's next and who to contact, so Tim's obviously presented the content there around the upcoming release, and please talk to your account manager if you've got any questions on that. So organisations that we're already working with regard to Business Central, connect with your account manager. If you're not sure who your account manager is, or we're not yet working together with regard to Business Central, you have my contact details there, and there's an inquiries email if you'd like to reach out after the webinar today. Having said that, we will provide you with a copy of the recording and the slides here. So that's an important reminder. Tim had a number of links here within the slides, so you will get a copy of these slides. Less some of that more confidential content that we talked about, Tim, but copy the slides there with a link, and we'll send that through to you after the session. For our upcoming events, just a little advertisement here for our Dynamics 365 Business Central clients. So we've got a couple of things coming up here. One is the service view of Business Central. So come along to this session here. We're going to be presenting the servicing piece within Business Central, so where you're able to raise quotes, turn those quotes into an order, do the repair on site or at base, invoicing customers for parts, etc. So managing that service part of your business. And we also have a Power BI webinar coming up there for focusing on Business Central as well. You'll see the dates there on your screen, and you can check out all of our events there in the pa.com.au/events page. So come along there and have a look at our upcoming events that are not just on Business Central, but these are the ones we just wanted to specifically highlight today. We just wanted to say thank you. So a couple of thank yous. Thank you, Tim, for joining us today and presenting the content. It was excellent to have that pre-release info presented for our clients here around Business Central. Thank you for everyone for attending today and joining us on the webinar.